Hello and welcome. My name is Amy Gray. I'm the Media and Publications Project Coordinator for LCMS Youth Ministry, and I'm so excited you've been able to join us for this month's LCMS Youth webinar. This month we have Pastor Marcus Zill with us. Marcus is the Director of LCMS Campus Ministry and LCMS U, and he's been involved in full-time campus ministry since 1998. Yes, he's got the shirt on and everything with that nice LCMS U logo on it, rocking his swag. It's good. Yeah, Marcus is very passionate about helping the church's youth grow in their faith during one of the most crucial and formative times in their life. We're talking about that transition from high school to college, or whatever that next step might be for the life of a young person. So Marcus, welcome. We're glad to have you here. And let me just share a couple things about our order today and what will be going on, just our agenda. After I introduce us, Marcus will have a time to give his presentation and share more about the transition and ministry at a campus setting. And then we'll have a facilitated Q&A time. So if you have questions or comments throughout this presentation, please use the chat box that you'll see on the lower left-hand side of your screen. I or Marcus will address your questions there. I'll try and answer what I can, but if there's something that requires more discussion or a greater question for Marcus, he will address that during that facilitated Q&A. And then we'll close things up. Marcus will give some final thoughts, and then I'll share just a couple housekeeping items about youth ministry and what's coming up next. And yes, so as we begin today, would you join me in prayer? This is a prayer from the Youth Workers Prayer Book about young adults and their transition to college. Dear Lord, high school seniors are about to have a new door in their life opened to many opportunities and challenges. We celebrate with them and give you thanks for their accomplishments in school as they are about to move on to new schools, endeavors, and efforts. With all the pressures at this time in their lives, let them see the solid foundation and truth of your Son, Jesus Christ. Guide them in their decisions and send your Holy Spirit to comfort when stressed, strengthen when weary, and encourage when tested. And God, we thank you for Marcus and for his work with college students. Would you bless him in the ways in which he serves? We pray all this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you, Amy, and thank you for having me. And thank you, everyone, for checking in. Hopefully you do have a lot of questions. I'd actually rather spend more time talking about things that you have questions about than the things that I have to share. But anyways, we are going to get started here. Just so you know, I'm down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So if you see me rocking my Zill mug, it's where I'm at. And if I sneeze a little bit, everything's in full bloom down here. We don't have many plants in the desert, but when they do start to pop, it kind of wreaks havoc with me a little bit. So my apologies in advance. But yeah, please do give us your questions. I would love to tackle them at the end. Anyway, so preparing youth to survive the academic apocalypse. You know, as we sit here and ponder, you see things going on around the country in terms of what's going on campus. The bottom line is that it's kind of a crazy thing. I right now I've got 20 years experience in campus ministry, and I'm really struggling myself because my eldest son is now a college freshman, and it's interesting being a parent of a college student. And so there's a lot of things. I've really been spending a lot of time reflecting on this, and it's scary. It's scary to send your kid off to college. It's scary to send, if you're a youth worker or a pastor or a parent or a grandparent, it's a scary time. So let's talk first about what's really at stake. We're going to kind of walk through what's at stake in terms of why do we care about this topic. I'm assuming if you got on the webinar today, it's because whether in your position as a pastor or youth worker or DC or a parent, you care about someone or a lot of people that head off to college, and you want to know how to keep them involved. I myself got involved in campus ministry precisely because of the statistics I was hearing about how we were losing our young people through this window of time, and decided that I wanted to make a difference. But let's talk real quick. This is going to be the depressing part. It's not all depressing. Then we'll get into some of the kind of the prescription. But what's at stake here? So I don't like to quote statistics unless they agree with what I already thought, which is how everybody uses statistics. Let's just be honest. But 30% of college students are diagnosed with depression while at college. This is probably one of the front cutting edge issues that we're facing going forward in terms of caring for young people through their college years is a serious dose of depression. Of course, it doesn't all start as they head off to college, but it kind of becomes more pronounced. 50% of our young people will drop out before they even receive a degree. 64% will graduate with between $10,000 and $40,000 in debt. This is becoming even more apparent, and this is one of the reasons why actually more college students today go to community colleges than four-year schools. We're up to about 51, 52% because they're trying to save money. Of course, the thing that concerns us the most, 40% will stop going to church, 20% will not return. And those are the types of things that I heard as a young man, and I said, that's it. I want to be a campus pastor. I want to stand in the gap. So there's a lot at stake. And of course, the most important thing for all of us is to keep in mind that 100% of all college students matter to God and to his church. And so that's why we care. At the end of the time here, if we have time, I'll kind of go through some ideas of, what is LCMSU a little bit, and I've kind of developed an acronym for 4 reasons why we care about college students, and I'll tease you with that. I'll go through that at the end. But anyways, I use this word apocalypse. Is there really an academic apocalypse? This is a little bit, it's kind of like anything with a title. You put something on it, you're trying to get people excited to come and hear your webinar or your presentation. But I would say, what's happening on our college campuses is fairly apocalyptic, not only in terms of the faith or the loss of faith of our young people, but also in terms of just the culture of our country, where this is very much the front lines of that. And in academic freedom, religious freedom is very, very much under attack. So, when we think about, this isn't an actual picture, although it could be. I've seen scenes sort of like this. We had Milo Yiannopoulos here at our campus here at the University of New Mexico. You see the sites from Berkeley. You don't really have zombies, but you have a lot of really kind of mind-numb people that are simply protesting anything and everything. It almost doesn't matter what it is. And we see this on the news, and it's fairly depressing. Frankly, it makes you wonder sometimes, why are we even sending our young people into these environments? And so as we're talking about this, my perspective, I come from the perspective, I didn't go to one of our Concordia universities. Not that you might not see some zombies there too, but in reality, I've spent most of my time on secular university campuses. And while this is kind of just some having fun with it a little bit, frankly, it's not all that far off. It's a scary place today. But the big question is whether wherever a kid's going to go to college, or if they're going to go to college. And that is increasingly something that we have to tackle. I get this question a lot. Why should I go to college? Maybe there's other opportunities for me that don't require me going into debt, leaving home, and perhaps putting my faith on the line. But what does college look like to a rising freshman? Most high school students aren't sitting there thinking about zombies and protests. They're looking forward with wonderment in their eyes and a chance for youthful exuberance and independence. I would suggest that the thing that college looks like most to those that are incoming freshmen, when they think about college, when they show up, this is what they see. They see a whole new world, or in this case, a whole new moon. College, I often explain, is a little bit like, it's like going to the moon. It's something that is completely different, completely a new atmosphere. You're leaving everything behind, and you're about to walk into off of what everything that's kind of like been an anchor in your life, and to step out onto a surface of something that you're really not sure where this is going to take you. And so to me, as we talk about preparing our young people for the academic apocalypse, many times I refer to this as helping them to get prepared to go to the moon, because in many cases, this is what it's going to feel like. So what will our college students face at college, per se? First of all, we have to understand that you have a very pluralistic environment in college, plural meaning many, not one. You have cultural pluralism, societal pluralism, religious pluralism, which frankly is under attack itself. The acceptance of all religious paths is equally valid, promoting coexistence. We've all seen those coexist bumper stickers. Frankly, those are the good old days. More recently, it's beginning to feel like we aren't welcome to be a part of the coexist. And this is becoming a little bit more prominent. We might long for the days when we could simply coexist on our college campuses, because our young people are under attack. There's no doubt about it. We are under much more scrutiny as religious groups. We're targeted at much greater levels than most other religious groups. And let's just face it, the persecution, it may not be full-fledged, and we never want to give the impression that we're being confronted the way our brothers and sisters in Christ are in Syria and other places in the world, where they're very much under the attack and fearful for their lives. But there is very much kind of a soft religious persecution and the loss of our religious liberties that are taking place. Post-modernity, we've kind of probably grown a little weary about talking about this. Some people claim that we're in a post-modern context. But obviously, our college campuses, you got to understand the surface of the moon. There is no such thing as truth anymore. When many of us went to college, when I went to college, I'm 50 now. When my parents went to college, you had, in many ways, there was still this idea that you're looking for truth. Colleges, you could see it in the architecture. You would have these old, strong buildings with columns and griffins and Latin phrases that would say that we're searching for truth. And in many cases, we don't have that objective idea of truth on campus anymore. Everything, one of the things I love about the moon surface picture is everything to your college student when they show up to college is going to be, if it's not gray when they arrive, there is no black and white. Everything is going to be gray. And so post-modernity has really argued that truth itself is a construct. You remember Pilate's age-old question of Jesus, well, what is truth? Colleges in many ways used to be places where we were searching for truth. Not in every discipline. Now it's really about you can create your own truth, or you can define truth for yourself. And so reality is no longer fixed or determinative. It's become relative. This became very apparent to me when I was chastised by an LCMS professor at a state university, who said I was really soft on his colleagues when I said that they're simply trying to get you to think about other things and to kind of deconstruct Christianity. And he came up to me and said, "You got it wrong. We want to push your young people up. My colleagues want to push your young people off the cliff and destroy their faith, not just challenge them to accept and to consider other faiths." So we very much live in this kind of a gray environment, which actually, as we get down to this is an incredible opportunity for young people to confess their faith. And so we have this challenge of walking into this vortex of everything's being gray. Nobody knows what they believe. The powers that be seem to want to have this attitude of you parents who don't really have the right to raise your kid. You may have had the right to teach your kid what you wanted their first 17, 18 years, but now it's our turn. Now you're turning over to us, and we're the experts, and we know better. And so there very much is this kind of boot camp mentality of let's break them down, confuse the heck out of them, make everything gray, and then help them reconstruct things the way we would like it to be. So if it is a black and white thing, it's not going to be the same black and white faith and foundation that they had before. And I think we have to understand that this is what we're facing. And one of my primary concerns with our young people, I don't think our young people have a clue, for the most part, what they're walking into. So postmodernity is still alive and well, and we deal with it. And it really, really hits our young people square. They're starting to already see this, of course, when they're in high school. but it becomes full-blown when they show up to college. So the implications is that the purpose of education has changed, and the pursuit of truth is no longer the goal. The one exception to that, I would say, is in the hard sciences. In a lot of cases, the hard sciences, I think it's easier for our young people to navigate. I did an informal survey about 10 years ago, asked all of our campus ministry folks, when you look at your young people that are most uber involved in your campus ministries, your student leader types, are they more hard sciences or soft sciences? And I was kind of surprised that it was like 92% hard sciences. Your engineering, which engineering is clearly the degree. I bet half of our college students that are active today are engineers. Engineering, chemistry, biology, medical sciences, math, computer science, etc. Soft sciences, psychology, history, English, sociology, women's studies, of course, and religious studies, some of these things. The soft sciences are much greater of a target because they're more subjective. 2 plus 2 still has to equal 4. And so, but in the soft sciences, you can escape objective reality and kind of rewrite things to your liking, or at least try to. So the purpose of education has changed, though. There's no doubt about it. We're no longer simply pursuing truth unless we absolutely have to. Tolerance has become the supreme virtue. Young people will get tired of the word tolerance. Of course, those who question the dogma that they're absolutes are excluded. So those of us that, for us, many things are black and white, are going to get excluded, and in many cases, not just excluded, but perhaps persecuted for having those beliefs. Virtues have become privatized. They used to be communal. It used to be something that culturally we just had outside of ourselves. There are certain things that are just right and wrong, even outside of the church. Now it's all about the individual. You as an individual get to decide what your virtue is, and nobody can tell you what that is. So instead of communal, everything's become individual. Of course, Satan loves that, because if he can get us focused inward, that's what sin is. The Latin incurvatus se, being curved inwards on oneself. And while we all love being individuals, the bottom line is we can't rely simply on ourselves and what we want to think either. We need to be instructed from the outside. But nothing on campus is outside of yourself, including truth. Everything's becoming internalized, and this leads to this kind of this ethic of emotivism, where emotion rules. We no longer debate. We no longer have actual debates on campus. It's really about, and you can see this in the protests that are taking place, and the penchant of the media to want to make sure that we see them. I have much more confidence in our young people than what you see with how the media portrays this age group. But you very much have this, nobody wants to debate truth or ideas. Instead, it's who can emote, who can be more passionate about what they believe. And for most of our young people, I think most of our young people today are really searching for that which is terribly authentic. And really that involves two things. One is the truth. Young people want the truth because they don't get it anywhere else. They want black and white. But they also want to see the passion. They want to know, do you actually believe this? Does this mean something to you? Anyways, those are just some of the implications of how this is in fact impacting from a campus pastor's perspective in many years when they actually turn up to college. Of course, when they show up to college, students need straight talk about lots of stuff that they're going to face, the transition, things they're not ready for, the freedom, responsibility. The one that I think is perhaps the biggest is the stewardship of time. Little things like knowing how to manage your calendar, knowing how to not get so involved with things on campus that you still have time to go to church and to have a balanced life. Young people show up to college and they wondering, who are my new friends going to be? There's loneliness, family separation, marriage, dating, sexuality issues. Sororities and fraternities come knocking on your door, and they don't wait till you're kind of there for a while. They hit you up, boom, right away. You've just looked at the moon's surface, and all of a sudden you have to find your crater to go to develop community. And a lot of times what's lost very early on is getting our young people involved directly at a local church, or if we happen to have a campus ministry there. And you can't underestimate the issues that are related for young people in terms of just their getting adjusted. It took me 3 years as a campus pastor to go, that's such a cop-out, I used to think. And I was like, wait a minute, these young people, they maybe have never gone to church by themselves. They've maybe only ever gone to one church their entire life. They've always gone with mom and dad. Mom's always gotten them out of bed, made sure they got up, made sure they had breakfast. And they certainly didn't have people, yelling at them and thinking, what's wrong with you for wanting to go to bed early on a Saturday night to go to church? And then you show up at church and you don't know anybody. You don't know the pastor. You don't know the people that are sitting all around you in the pews next to you. It can be very disconcerting, very similar to what it's like when you show up to college in the first place. And many times it looks almost so daunting, that they are like, well, this doesn't feel like home. And they don't go. They don't go that second time. Moving ahead, this is just a kind of summary to get to some of the kind of the prescriptions and things that I'd like to talk to you about mostly here. Obviously, there's many challenges. You have multiple worldviews, an ethic of motivism. Every incoming freshman will face a hostile professor at a state university their first year. They just will. Homesickness. They don't act. The juniors and seniors in high school, they're not worried about homesickness. They get it. Let's be honest. Independence, obviously relaxed boundaries. Depression is on the rise in a huge way, and the huge potential of debt. So there's a lot of challenges for our young people when they head off to academia and the college life. They have a lot of decisions to make. Who are my friends going to be? What clubs am I going to join? How do I spend my time? What am I going to do? And more than anything, they're going to be challenged with their faith. And while they're not maybe making a decision about their faith, they're going to be asked to go to other groups on campus. They're going to struggle a little bit. Of course, there's many opportunities. Nothing. You talk to anybody that's in campus ministry. I don't know if we have any people on here that are actually involved in campus ministry per se. But you won't find many who are in campus ministry, even though the challenges are great, who are not optimistic people. I could not be more optimistic about the future precisely because of these young people. And so the young people that I see, they have grown leaps and bounds, and that's a tribute to them that they're still keeping the faith during their time in college. But the challenge to us is that while they can be incredible confessors of faith and grow in their faith under these tests and trials, we're starting to lose them earlier than ever before. When I first showed up as a campus pastor 20 years ago, we weren't losing them maybe in high school. They were going through the vortex once they showed up to college. Now we see them slipping away much earlier. And part of this is because they're confronted with things much earlier. The onslaught of secular progressivism and especially the public high schools and even earlier. But also just the whole saturation of social media and the progressive worldviews that they're confronted with on a daily basis, even before they show up to college. So that's a little summary, and the good news is it doesn't stop there. So the big question is, I'm going to spend about maybe 10 minutes talking through this a little bit. How can you best prepare your youth for this full collegiate experience? Here's some, kind of develop this into some do's and some don'ts. Let's start out with some don'ts. Obviously, the biggest concern is not letting them slip in the way in the first place. Of course, that's easier said than done. And you're like, well, hey, you're the expert. That's why we got on this webinar, right? One thing I think it's important, don't assume anything about your youth. Don't assume. I used to have local pastors or youth workers when their kid was a junior or senior. Pastor Zill, when they come your way at college, this kid's going to come to everything. They're going to be such a self-starter. They do everything at our church. They've been in the youth group. They're going to come. And they'd say, you don't even have to worry about them. They're going to just show up on their own. You're going to get sick of them. You're going to be so tired of this kid wanting to learn and grow and come to worship. Sometimes that's the kid that doesn't show up. Then there's the well, Pastor Zill, this kid hasn't been coming for a few years. They're fairly depressed. They got family issues, yada, yada, yada. I'll give you their name, but I doubt they're ever going to show up. That's the kid that does come, or that's the kid that appreciates reaching out. I tell all of our campus workers, whether they're lay people, pastors, or DCEs, or deaconesses, or whatever, don't assume anything about any of these young people. College is such a jolt. When you look out and you see that surface, you can be jolted in either direction, both for the good or for the bad. The third one, and I don't mean this to sound negative, but I as someone that's always been involved with youth ministry and campus ministry, don't pit youth ministry versus the church. Our young people are craving to be part of the church. And so anything we can do, in my mind, to transition, to help them feel a part of church. Sometimes we have almost desegregated people into all these little subcategories: youth ministry, campus ministry, and then we get into junior high, senior high. And I'll tell you, when they show up to college, they just want to be church. They just want to be involved and to feel like they're a part of the body of Christ. And frankly, well, they might whine about it a little bit. Where's everybody my age, especially if they're in a smaller church, before they go to college? When they get to college, you know what they want? They want to see people with gray hair. They want to see grandmas and grandpas, even if they're not their own. Which is why every church needs to recognize they got everything at their disposal simply by being church. Sometimes the best advocates of campus ministry and the best people that care for our college students are precisely our senior citizens. As crazy as that sounds, it's totally countercultural and counterintuitive, but it's the way it is. Don't bait and switch them. We need to give things. I'm very much an advocate of we have to prepare our kids before they show up to college for what they're going to face at college. And so this kind of gets to some of the other, don't save the serious stuff for later. We don't want to give the impression that being a Christian is going to be easy when it's not. And they know it's not, especially if they go to a public school. They know how rough it is. Don't think that as long as our youth are having fun, that we're doing our best to keep them in the faith. This is a chastisement for me as a campus pastor. I used to get frustrated. I had all these young people come into church, come into Bible class, and then they or I would put on these what we thought were fairly fun events, and they wouldn't come. And I was always bummed that we wouldn't get nearly as many for the fun stuff. And they're like, Pastor Zill, we're trying to be serious here, and we only have so much time. So if we have to choose, we're going to come to worship God, to receive His gifts, and to learn. And so I was severely chastised that. I think we need to prepare them for this transition of being serious students in all that they do. And of course, as I always want to say, make worship, make study, and make fun, and do the best you can about it. But the thing that I want to really drive home is it's not just about having fun. It is really, and I can't underemphasize this enough. Can't overemphasize it enough, excuse me. It's about relationships. It's about relationships. More on that in a bit. Don't shield young people from problems in the church and their congregations so that they, many times what we'll hear when they go to college, oh, we heard about the Missouri Synod. Those are the people that think this, or those are the people that think that. And if we shield our young people from the types of things that they're going to face, they may not be ready for it. So we just flat out can't save the serious stuff for later. And I think we always need to assume that we can raise the bar for them. I've never met a young person that wasn't ready to have the bar raised, and I don't think we can raise it enough. Some do's: do the best things that you're already given to do. Catechesis, worship life. Do raise the bar on what you teach them. I'm constantly saying this to all of those that I work with in campus ministry. I think it's true all the way down the line. Of course, those of us in campus ministry, early childhood, they get a whole canvas with a young person. By the time they get to our college campuses, those of us in campus ministry are spacklers. We're trying to kind of fill in the gaps and fill in the holes with catechesis. So the more you raise the bar, the more you give them serious topics to address, especially things they're going to have to face when they go to college anyways. I mean, let's face it. The world is not waiting for us to get around to want to be serious with our young people. They're getting a head start. And so we need to rethink about what we can do to raise the bar. Do your best to strengthen relationships so that they know you care, not only on the family front. If you're a youth leader, pastors, if we have pastors on here, I beg you to remember that when your young person goes off to college, they're still your member. And not every young person is going to have a campus pastor or a campus worker that's going to take kind of the interest in them that they're used to. And so many times they don't know what that looks like. Send them, I always tell campus pastors back home especially, that you set the stage here. Tell your young people that they can expect to hear from you. Even if it was just a text. I had a pastor when I was in the University of Wyoming. Once a year, he used to ask for time off on a Sunday, usually when it was a football game, to come down to the University of Wyoming. Okay, fine. Multiple motives here. But he would come down, take his kids out for lunch, go to the football game with them, hang out with them in the evening, and actually go to church with them. And I was so incredibly impressed that he would spend that kind of quality time with his own young people. They knew full force that their pastor, that their congregation back home, whom he represented, and this doesn't have to be a pastor, it could be a youth worker. In fact, for a youth worker, it'd be a lot easier because they can maybe get away on a Sunday a little bit easier. Those things are invaluable. Young people want reminders at home. A couple other dues, do get them involved in service in the church. Young people want to serve. All of us, they want to serve. And we're very good. We've gotten much better at finding service opportunities for them outside of the church, to go away somewhere else. But we need to find places to plug our young people in. I'm talking as soon as they're confirmed. We're presently having a little bit of a fight at my home church. Sometimes I should be careful in case some of them are watching. We've got a young whiz kid who's like a 12-year-old organist phenom, and he's just dying to be involved. Well, let the young people get involved. Let them get involved wherever it's appropriate, and wherever they can, because young people want to serve, and if they can't serve within the church, they're going to find other places to go to serve. But why not at home among the body of Christ? Get them involved. When they become confirmed and they take those vows to suffer all, even death, rather than fall away from the faith, we're expecting them to be serious by the confession that they make at that point. So I think they can help usher. I think they can help pass out bulletins. I think they can help do all sorts of things at church. Let them shadow the musicians. Let them be musicians. Let's not be afraid to get our young people involved. I think it's very key. So integrate them wherever possible, and by all means be authentic. It's about relationships at some point with our young people. All right, so a couple other quick things, and I'm going to wrap this up. How can congregations help their youth connect to a campus ministry? Obviously, this is very key. Start talking about college early. Go visit nearby colleges with your students. Let's say you're doing something for your high school youth group. Go on campus, even if it's at a community college. Have a study on site. Go to the college. Go to the student union, and have a Bible class on campus. I used to always do this. We were talking about death. We go and have, kids are always saying, "Hey, can we go on a field trip? Can we have this outside if it's too nice?" So okay, fine. So we went to the cemetery to talk about death and dying. Go on campus. Get them familiar. They go on campus for other reasons, to go to camps, music stuff, sports. Take them on campus when they're in high school and talk about faith issues or things that they're going to face while they're on campus, and let them just kind of soak it up and get familiar with the idea it's okay to talk about your faith while you're on campus. Provide forums to talk to your youth about their collegiate choices. Catechize towards the issues that they will face on campus. Please, please, please stress the doctrine of vocation. It's not just about getting a job. You're still a daughter or a son when you go to college. You're still a sibling when you go to college. You're obviously a Christian when you go to college. You need to be a good citizen. You need to be a good neighbor. Stress the doctrine of vocation. Get in touch, of course, with the campus ministry or local congregation where they're going as early as possible. And again, as I mentioned, go with them to that place before and during college. As much as I can do, or people like me on the receiving end, as much as we can do, we can't do everything. And it really is about kind of a both and. How can congregations remain connected to their youth during their time at college? I suggest go with them to church right away and plan trips periodically so you can continue to do so. Don't go the first week. Let them show up to church somewhere on their own. But then when they don't do it, maybe make a trip to go see them in mid-September and go with them to church. Help them to get in that routine. Remember, I said they don't feel familiar when they go up to a new and a strange church, and no church will feel like they're one at home because it's not their home church. Obviously, continue to pray for them. Reminders from home, their church, their pastor, their youth worker, care packages still work. Some things don't change. 3 words: chocolate chip cookies, still a hit. And keep in mind, young people don't get snail mail. They may act like they hate snail mail, but they love it, especially because it's so unheard of. Encourage your members at your church to go visit students and take them out to lunch, even if it's just, people from church that, hey, we're going to be in town, call up, say, hey, can I take you out to lunch? Can I meet with you to have coffee? For no other reason than I'm one of your fellow members of the body of Christ back home and want to see how you're doing and let you know that we're praying for you. Care for other people's kids who might be going to a college near where you live. The best people to get involved on the home front. Let's say I'm a father of a kid at school. He happens to go to school and he's commuting. But what if he was going off to school somewhere else? Why not have me take an interest in somebody else's kid that's coming to the school or the church where I'm at? Because I'm missing my own kid. I could at least dote on and love on somebody else's kid while they're coming to my church when they're away from home. Ask your young people to be involved at church when home over Christmas break. And by the way, a lot of groups, especially if you're a DCU youth worker, there's a huge movement these days to say, hey, our college kids are going off to college. They're gone 3 months in the summer. They come home for like 6 weeks, 4.5 months out of the year. They're not off at college. They're back at home. So how can I get involved with them, stay involved with them, not at the expense of them going to a local church or campus ministry while they're gone, but how can I kind of keep in touch with them? There's a lot of groups that are doing like monthly Google Hangouts or Skyping or whatever, and then planning events with each other on the home front. But let me just sum this up and then leave some time for questions here. The 2 big keys, if you forget everything else that I've said or shared here, I just want to drive these 2 things home. The 2 big keys to me to helping young people face what they're going to face when they get hit in the face with the surface of the moon and this academic apocalypse in college. It has to do with 2 types of relationships. First relationship is their relationship to Christ. We do a lot of great programming. We do a lot of topical studies. But if I could go back into my own pastoral life and my own time as a youth worker, and I could do one thing to really help young people stay connected while they go off to college, it would be to teach them, not just to give lip service to the idea of their developing their devotional life, but actually modeling it. Because they may have nobody when they go off to college. They may not have a church nearby. They may not have a campus ministry worker. They might not know of other LCMS students that are nearby. And we may not have the programming that they're used to. But if they can develop a good, solid devotional life and do nothing more than that, it will pay huge dividends while they're at school. So their relationship to the body of Christ, and of course that includes not just being solo, but also going to church and receiving the sacrament and being around the rest of the body of Christ. But the second thing is not only their relationship to Christ devotionally, but their relationship to others. It's all about relationships. Everybody needs to have a significant close friend or to have that need for family. Well, we have that inherently as the body of Christ. And many of our young people grow up, maybe they take that for granted. They go off to college and they're like, holy smokes, I really missed that. And so don't be surprised if they, not just a big sister or big brother types, but perhaps a grandma or grandpa type that can connect with them. Get your folks involved that have time and have wisdom and have experience, and don't assume that young people aren't willing. They would probably love to go for a walk with someone and to have a cup of coffee with someone that shares their faith and has been there and done that. So anyways, two big keys to me: relationships, not only to the body of Christ, but also to one another. So that is pretty much it. And Amy, if you want to kind of pop back in here and facilitate this, happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Marcus. Angela has a question here for us asking about community college. And do you find that this is a good option to initiate the transition? Is her first part of the question. And secondly, what are some common benefits for community college outside of reducing debt?
Well, the debt is a key one. There's many other benefits. One of them is not every young person is ready to go off someplace. Everybody thinks, oh, I went 2,000 miles away for college. I totally wasn't ready. Our young people are bombarded with, it's like they're more is forced on them at an earlier age, but they're in many ways, I think, less mature today and less ready to handle it. And so I think sometimes it's an easier transition. I think academically, as well as in terms of financially, a lot of times you get better teaching at community colleges, especially that first year. A lot of our professors at community colleges, they're there because they want to teach. They don't want to do all the graduate level, getting grants from the government and then having all this high stress of having to do all this research and writing papers. I have a lot of former students that got two of them that were teaching at a public, prestigious four-year school and gave it up to go teach at community colleges because they found themselves increasingly not even spending their time with young people, and that's really what they love to do. And so community colleges are a great option. Back in the day when I was thinking about going to school, they were just VOTEC schools, which of course there's nothing wrong with that. But they really are getting much more comprehensive. Community college outreach in terms of campus ministry is much tougher. That's one of the kind of the big frontiers going forward in the campus world is how do we, college students are transient enough when they're only there for 4 or 5 years, how much more so when they're living at home and just cycling through and going to classes here or there. But I think there's a lot of benefits. If we didn't have a four-year state university just as close to us here in Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico, it's just as close as the community college. My son might have considered that himself. And so you're not necessarily getting a worse education by doing that. It's not for everybody, and you don't have a lot of the clubs. You don't have a lot of all this other stuff. You can just focus on kind of a lot of the other transitions. And for some people, it's a little less it's like a lesser moon.
Marcus, next question here from Paul, a follow-up about the forums that you talked about discussing college choices. Could you give some examples or maybe reference some material that you might use for this kind of a forum? For example, do you go through how to pay off debt or campus ministry options, things like that?
Well, this, of course, in my position, I've only been at it a little bit over 2 years, and we had taken a little bit of hiatus from kind of the campus ministries. These are the types of things we're trying to build into the dose so that we can provide these for people a little bit more directly. But some of these things are things that parents are just going to have to walk through. Parents do walk through these with their young people. I think parents need to take a huge role in this. The big thing in terms of campus ministry options, I can't stress this enough. I am so incredibly tired of hearing that people decide where to go to college based on every possible reason, and then at the very end they go, okay, where am I going to go to church? Or do I have a vehicle? Do I have the means to go to church? Or is there a campus ministry there? We have, pockets of places where we don't have a lot of campus ministry help. And so it's very frustrating because at some point, what difference is it? I mean, I could really care less what they're going to do with their life if they're going to lose their faith. I mean, at some point, we have to take this seriously. When I got into campus ministry, I'd heard the statistic as a pan-Lutheran statistic that 90% of all confirmed Lutheran youth were no longer in the church. Not that they didn't necessarily believe yet. They maybe hadn't lost faith, but they were no longer in the church in an appreciable way. 90% by the age of 25. So from confirmed age to 25, 90%. We have to help them understand. You know, it's something as simple as, what do you want to do? Where are you thinking about going? Are there 5 or 6 places? Most kids kind of think through 5 or 6 different places, and then do the research up front about you know, what is, you know, we do things about, is there an airport? How will you get home? What's the degree? What are the degree options you're going to have? How much it's going to cost? And then we make our decision and we go, oh, yeah, that's right. Where are they going to go to church? Well, make that the first thing, not the last thing.
Thanks, Marcus. I'm just following up here with Paul to make sure that that's answering his question as far as what he was looking for.
Yeah, maybe I did.
Kind of the format of the forum. I think you got at some of the things that you would talk through, but his question also talks about just what sorts of materials or examples you have of the
materials.
Yeah.
A lot of this is in the development area. We are hopefully within the next year going to be unveiling, working with the youth ministry department and everybody in LCMSU putting on some events and other things for those that will be headed off to college, kind of under the banner of College Bound. Not to take away from parents and home pastors and youth workers back home, but to try to help develop these materials. I wish we had more of it to be able to kind of just kind of get out there, but unfortunately we don't. It's taken a little bit longer than I'd like, but in development.
Great. Yes, I'm excited for those resources too, Marcus. Thanks for your work with those. You mentioned, or could you share more about local congregations who maybe don't have a campus ministry specifically, but there's a university in town or nearby? And could you talk about maybe talk to that congregation about how they can be intentional about reaching out to students in their communities?
Can we? Or I mean, every congregation at some point has to, you know, we need kind of a shift in how we view campus ministry. Campus ministry is the ministry, and it's kind of like youth ministry. What is youth ministry? It's the ministry to young people. Campus ministry is the ministry to, okay, this is where we get a little stuck, the campus, or is it to college age people? I mentioned, and I'll throw up a slide. I might push ahead here to the slide. I'll come back to this. I want to make sure I get this in. In essence, there's four reasons why we care about campus ministry, why we care about this topic. First is catechizing and caring for our own. Apologetics in the academic square. Our colleges are places of, they're incubators of ideas. And when we walk away from that, we're not as involved as we should be, and we let the world say, you can teach our kids, but we don't have anything to say outside of their faith. Well, I'm not ready to say that. Reaching out to those who are lost. I mean, the opportunities of the negative is more young people are losing their faith. Incoming freshmen, the stats demonstrate. There's a UCLA study of every college, every fall, they do a study of about 150,000 incoming freshmen for the last 30 years. 30 years ago, 8% had no religious affiliation whatsoever. This is the famous nuns category. Now that nun category of no religious affiliation is up closer to about 28%. So in one generation, our incoming freshmen have basically become 3 times less religious in general. And so the negative is it's scary for us, but it means there's also plenty of opportunities to reach out to those who are lost. International students, the atheists, the agnostics. And we need to engage a dying culture with Christ. And the reason why I wanted to go to this with this question is because we've often thought of campus ministry as something that somebody else is doing somewhere else. and that there will be somebody on the receiving end, and it doesn't involve the rest of us. Well, to me, campus ministry and reaching out to college students, and every congregation has to look at who its neighbor is. You have to look, do we have a prison nearby? Do we have a local school? Do we have a college? Do you have a community college? My first call was on an Indian reservation, a Native American reservation. Don't send me to HR. If 50% of your community are Native Americans, it's kind of hard to notice that maybe we should try to reach out to them as our neighbors. Same thing is true if you have a local college or a four-year school or a community college. And so in reality, one of the things that we're hoping to do is, now that we've kind of have been building up the chapter network and seeing where it all is, there's, I think, 220 something chapters now. There's obviously some holes. And but we have to really inspire congregations to see that, we have everything because we're the church. We're right here. And frankly, all campus ministry is local. But if we sit around and wait for it to look like a full-born $100,000 a year, a building next door to the college kind of campus ministry, then it may never happen. But everybody's got to decide, well, who is our neighbor and how can we reach out to them? And frankly, it's terribly exhilarating to be on campus and to be engaging our culture and the demonstrating to our young people that we care enough to be there. And so in reality, there's colleges everywhere where we don't have campus ministries. Well, guess what? We have churches in 6,000 places. There's plenty of opportunities for everybody to do this in their own way. But all campus ministry is local. We can only inspire people to do locally what we can encourage them to do globally, and whether we have it being supported out of the synod structure or not, what really makes campus ministry happen is pastors, DCEs, deaconesses, youth workers, lay volunteers, parents, professors that just care enough to do it.
We'll go ahead and take a few more moments here. If there's additional questions that have come up, feel free to type them in the chat box as you have been doing. Otherwise, Marcus, why don't you go ahead and share some of the other resources and things that you wanted to share with us at the end.
Yeah, obviously you can go to lcmsu.org or lcms.org/LCMSU. We're a little short in the resource department. That's an area that I'm making a big emphasis in the next year to really start cataloging some resources. The last couple of years have been more structural in that regard. I see somebody pointed out the College 101 book from CPH. There's that resource. You also have this book, The Devotional Companion. We're working on this right now. This was about 10, 12 years ago. I had a hand in helping to develop this. It's a little $5 or $6 resource from CPH. We're turning it into the College Companion. It's going to have witnessing tips. It's going to take the best what was in the previous resource. Have a lot of witnessing tips and questions that searchers and unbelievers and atheists and agnostics and international students have, and kind of having areas where this is going to be the one resource that you can kind of throw in your backpack. And if you run across somebody that, what are the 20 most common questions that atheists have or agnostics, and what are some frameworks to kind of address them, or to look up while I'm talking to Jehovah's Witnesses on campus, what are like a little 1 or 2 page thing of how to best kind of talk to them. It's taken a little bit longer than we'd hoped because there's so many things we want to pile in there, but that's going to be a helpful resource for gifts and whatnot to help people when they head off to college. College bound, again, there's a lot of things in development. My hope is that hopefully by next June, we'll actually have some things that people can go to. Some major conferences. There's a group called Summit Ministries. In the meantime, I can't fully endorse it. I've known some people who have sent their kids to these things in the summer where they spend a week, and it's kind of like a worldview boot camp. That's kind of what we're talking about, a place where graduating seniors in high school can go off, get to know one another, kind of have a week to they go to colleges and they have all their orientations and stuff, but wouldn't it be cool for them to have a place to kind of kind of work towards it with some resources and some kind of leadership development during their senior year, and then look forward to going to an event with other kids that are going through the same exact thing that they're going through. And the thing that's even more exciting is getting those that have just finished their freshman year to help the rest of us to put on these events for those that are getting ready to go off to college. Because you learn a lot between your freshman and your sophomore year, no doubt about it. We are, this is like this spring, we're working on, LCMSU is going to kind of become a kind of a social media empire. So LCMSU and our awesome little logo will become its own app in time. This will be kind of like, young people don't care about Facebook as much anymore, but this will be kind of like a combination of various blogs, forums, developing their own Facebook profile so they can get connected forum-wise to those that have common interests, and then also by their geography and where they're going to school. So for instance, you create your profile. We're still kind of working on this. This is just to kind of give an idea what it'll look like. You can, what the gateway will be when we don't want people trolling around in this. But right now I'm just finalizing the list of about 100 people or so to really kind of beta test this spring. We want to unveil this summer heading into the fall, but we want to make sure it's rolling. But there'll be places where they can discuss academic life, apologetics. Imagine a place where you can go and talk to a faculty member. Got about 60 profs who are on our secular campuses who are willing to kind of be involved as a place for, let's say you're a chemistry student and you'd like to connect with other chemistry students who happen to be Lutheran and share your faith. How much cooler if you had 2 or 3 chemistry profs, whether from our Concordias or secular schools, that you could kind of connect with, and it kind of develops a little fraternal aspect of those that have those common interests. And then there will be a whole area that will be divided up by regions and nations. The old Lutheran Student Fellowship days don't exist anymore, and we purposely didn't develop regions, but we are going to kind of try to develop that kind of more on a state-by-state basis so that you can connect with college students. Especially I'm interested for those that don't have a full-fledged campus ministry somewhere, and they kind of feel like they're out on their own. At least they can connect this way and also find out what's going on in their area in case they can get together with other college students, whether back home in their home state or where they happen to be going to school. So that's kind of coming down the pike too. Anyways, any other questions? Or we kind of run our course here?
Yeah, no other ones have come up, Marcus. I think you've shared a lot of really good conversation, or really good content here. We've had some good conversations, so thank you for that. Certainly, if there are additional questions, you can follow up either with Marcus directly or with the youth ministry office as well. I think, Marcus, you gave your contact information, but it's his first name dot last name Zill at lcms.org. I can include that in the box here, Marcus. Zill at lcms.org.
Yeah, drop me a note if you want to talk about something more specific. I'm happy to do so.
Great. So thank you, Marcus, for sharing with us, and also everyone who has been able to attend, and even more just for your care for young people and for those transitioning to college or maybe college students specifically, and God's blessings as you continue forward in doing that work and caring for those people in your communities. Just one piece of housekeeping from Youth Ministries, and our next webinar next month is the April 26th. It is called How Do I Know? It's with another campus pastor at Concordia Ann Arbor, Reverend Ryan Peterson, and he'll be talking about conversations with youth about potential vocations and careers and directions for what they may be considering. So how do I know is as I think about what to study in college or maybe what direction to pursue vocationally. So please, we welcome you to join us again next month, or certainly watch the recording later online. But for now, we will leave you for today and pray God's blessings on the rest of what you have, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Amy.